Now it's time to talk about work experience. And we're talking to students here. We're passionate about students and finding students jobs and getting graduate roles and getting you guys working. And then you're saying, but Tracey, you telling me to put my work experience. Hello, I don't have any. Should I be making it up? Or should I put in the fact that I was selling t-shirts, or I don't know, that I was walking around with a bucket collecting secondhand books on campus so that I could then sell them on? Yeah, I think you should. You don't have much else, right? So put in what it is, put in what information or experience you've had, and I'm going to help you now to say how to word it or position it or to make it relevant. So put it in. Later on, guys, when you've had a few years experience in the field that you're going to follow, those things are going to be less important. But when you're a student or you're newly qualified or you're still junior, those things are important. They say so much. You can turn them into a story that means so much. So what could these be? I think we should break work experience into a couple of different sections. So let's say, what could be relevant work experience? Perhaps you did an undergrad, you worked for a year, and then you're doing your postgrad, and that work was in the field. Okay, so that would probably, well, that, let's call that one. And then let's talk about internships, or some people will do winter schools, or they'll do sort of vac jobs. I would kind of group those together. The next thing I would always include, even if it's not a formal thing, even if it's just somebody you know, or someone who knows your family offered to help you out, someone who knows one of your lecturers said, of course I'll help, they can job shadow me for an hour or two. Definitely put that. And you can make it clear. You can say job shadowing, or whether it's networking conversations. The next thing that I'm seeing more and more lately is that companies are really good about having a group of students come in, whether they're learners or whether they're students, come into the business for a few hours or a day or whatever it is, and they show them around and they show them what they do, and they tell them about, you know, the different roles, and sometimes they will call it by a certain name. So I remember one or two companies were running workshops to say, let's bring grade 10 learners in and show them what we do to inspire them to, you know, as to what to study, etc. That kind of stuff is great. You went to it, share it. It's really, really good because so many people don't have that opportunity. So you could say, I was part of this company's take a girl child to work experience, or I was part of this, etc. So put that down. We're just going to separate them out. When it comes to work experience, we can divide it up. Some people may have had an actual job. So say, for example, you do an undergrad and then you do a year's work experience in that particular field, and then you go and do a postgrad. That would kind of be, oh, well, I've had a job. It may have been an internship. In fact, you know, it could actually be that you took some time off and you did some work so that you could fund your studies, or you know, or maybe you wanted to have a little bit of life experience before you studied. In those situations, when it's deemed relevant to what you are aiming to do, what you studied, the organization you're applying for, list that first as under your title work experience. The other things that may not seem like they're actual work experience but are super important are internships, winter schools, etc. Now, why I say that they are critical is because it shows the company you're applying to that you have been exposed to some other similar companies in that industry or field, etc. And I'll give you an example further. When I was, say for example, I was working through 1,000 CVs, and in actual fact, it was often more. So say for example, I was working through 1,000 CVs. And I was, my background was always working in finance. So, that was kind of, the recruiters are going to be exposed to many different industries, but I'm talking about my experience just to make it more real for you guys. So if I was screening 1,000 CVs, and initially you kind of have a quick look to get a feel whether it's a yes or a no. It's kind of a basic glance that will just tell you a couple of things that are maybe disqualify the individual for that particular role. So you do a first glimpse, then you're going to go back, then you're going to look again, etc. So as part of that screening process, if I'm working in a bank and looking for students who are graduates, for example, who I think would work well and who I want to recruit for the bank, etc., there's nothing better than to tell me that they're ideal for my bank, because when they've had work experience or an internship at one of my bank's competitor banks, right? Suddenly, that's going to bring out not only the competitive elements of me, because I want to get these guys, but on a serious note, it actually shows me that that individual, not only their studies, but that their interests and exposure, etc., are all aligned. And if that amazing bank has given them an internship, then I'm pretty sure that we should give them an internship too. So the last little bit is a bit of a joke. But when you're putting in something like an internship or a job, let's call a winter program and an internship, let's talk about what the difference is. So a winter program could be, companies would want to hire, let's say they're wanting to hire in the student's final year of study for the following year's graduate program. And they say, not only would it be great for these kids to get exposure to us, so it's a little bit of a marketing thing, but it actually makes sense for us to get a glimpse of the students out there before we start formally recruiting, right? So it works both ways. So companies are really doing that a lot more, and it's fabulous. They get a chance to they're going to be able to chat to, they're going to be able to present, they're going to engage with students, and the students are getting a chance in the business to talk, find out if it's right for them. It's a win-win. That tends to be a set amount of time, and I call it a winter program or summer program because it's during the VAC where they will have a group of people in the business for a week or two, and they are not you guys, the students that they have aren't actually in a job per se. They're getting exposure to the organization. The difference is when in fact, what I call an internship is going to be when you guys actually get an opportunity to work in a role or in a team or in a division for, a few days. Well, it's probably going to be like 2, 3, 4 weeks plus, because unlike having you there for the winter program, which is a week where you don't need to really add value, if you're joining as an intern, you are actually joining you're going into a role, and it takes a little bit of time to kind of get up to speed. So an internship for me is a period of time where it's agreed that you will be at the organization, whether it's paid or not, and whether it's in one team or not. But that is a slightly longer engagement. So I would call either have a job, or perhaps you have a contract, or perhaps you have an internship, or perhaps you have a summer or winter school, or you have job shadowing, or you have exploratory conversations. There are loads of different things.